Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be discussing the FIRE movement. What are its core principles? What are some common criticisms of the movement? And maybe you can decide whether or not the FIRE movement is right for you. FIRE stands for Financially Independent, Retire Early. It's essentially a lifestyle movement that focuses on maximizing your savings rate. The idea is that you'll have enough money invested that the returns on those investments will cover your living expenses indefinitely. So that's what it means to be financially independent, when your expenses are being covered by those investment returns. And a lot of people in the FIRE community are more focused on this financial independence portion than the retire early portion. For a lot of people, they're actually focusing on making work optional rather than just retiring early. So how did the FIRE movement get started? Well, the movement sort of spawned out of blogs, podcasts, and online discussion forums. But it really surged in popularity when Pete Adeny, aka Mr. Money Mustache, wrote a blog post called The Shockingly Simple Math Behind Early Retirement. And in the post, he writes about pretty much what the title says, how simple early retirement can actually be. And if you haven't read this post already, it's definitely worth a read. The crazy thing about the FIRE movement is that it's solely based on your savings rate. Your savings rate is comprised of two things. One, how much money you take home every year, and two, what your expenses are every year. Your ability to become financially independent is based solely on this savings rate. Here you can see the working years until retirement based on a bunch of different savings rates. If you have a savings rate of 0%, meaning that you're not saving any money that you're bringing in during the year, then that means you're never going to be able to retire. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if you save 100% of your take-home pay, you can retire right away. But for most people, we fall somewhere in the middle. So say you're saving 60% of your income. Then it would take you 13 years to reach financial independence. And the fact that financial independence is based on this one factor is kind of crazy, because it doesn't matter how much you're actually making every year. It just matters at the end of the day what that savings rate is. So if you're making $200,000 every year and only saving 10% of that, it's going to take you 51 years to retire. Of course, it's going to be a lot easier to increase your savings rate if you are earning a higher income. These numbers are all based on what is known as the Trinity Study, which is a 1998 study from Trinity University. This study attempted to determine safe withdrawal rates in retirement through different retirement portfolios, including stocks and bonds. And through this study, it was determined that in order to be able to live off of your investments indefinitely, you should have 25 times your annual expenses saved up. And this is also known as the 4% rule. Through the Trinity study, it was determined that you're safe to withdraw 4% from your portfolio and be able to live off of that indefinitely throughout retirement. So if your yearly expenses are $40,000, then you would need $1 million saved up and invested in order to cover your retirement expenses indefinitely. And this is because that $1 million that you've saved up will generate enough returns in the market to cover your living expense of $40,000. This is in essence your own money paying you a $40,000 salary every year, which is pretty neat. One of the most common philosophies of the FIRE movement is that your money is a complete trade-off of your time. So by reaching financial independence and making work optional, you're giving yourself freedom and giving yourself more time. I'll admit, whenever I first heard of the FIRE movement, I was pretty turned off by it. To me, it seemed like a really scrappy and frugal lifestyle that wasn't really fulfilling in the moment in order to buy back your time down the line. It seemed to me that the only way that you could be a part of the FIRE movement was by giving up those everyday luxuries and living a really scrappy lifestyle until you reach that point of financial independence. And I still believe that to a certain extent. I would never recommend cutting out things in life that truly bring you happiness. But with the FIRE movement, it's more focusing on those things in life that truly do bring you happiness and giving you an option to buy back your time in order to do more of those things. Another big criticism of the FIRE movement is that the FIRE movement is only for the rich. And this can definitely be true. It's really hard to hit those high savings rates on a lower income. And this is especially true whenever certain costs like rent and food within somebody's expenses can only be reduced by so much. And even if you're really penny pinching and cutting out those things in life that are unnecessary, it can still be really difficult to hit that savings rate that you might need to become financially independent. But with that being said, I still think a lot of the ideas surrounding the FIRE movement can be beneficial to anyone on any income. And even if you're only shaving off 5 or 10 years off of your original retirement date, that's still considered a huge success in my book. Another common criticism of the FIRE movement is that early retirees may not have saved up enough to adequately cover their living expenses indefinitely. The Trinity Study was actually based off of a group of retirees that had that traditional 30 years of a retirement time frame. And because the retirement phase of people who have reached FIRE could potentially last up to 70 years, critics say that the 4% rule can't adequately be applied here. And this criticism is mainly based on the fact that we don't have evidence for groups of retirees spanning this long of a time frame. But even so, I think we all have lessons that can be learned from the FIRE movement. The average American family is saving less than 10% of their paycheck, and nearly 40% of Americans would have difficulty paying for an unforeseen $400 expense. We could definitely all do with maximizing that savings rate and starting to focus on the things in life that really matter to us. There are a lot of different reasons to pursue FIRE, but one of the most common reasons is to pursue work that you're really passionate about. Being financially independent means that you have the freedom to pursue what you want to pursue, and not just because you're trying to bring in that paycheck every month. And for a lot of people, they just don't want to work at all anymore, which is a totally valid option. Some early retirees retire early with a goal of spending more time with their family, especially if they have young kids that they want to see grow up. And another reason people FIRE is to become location independent, so that they have the freedom to travel the world without being tied down to a job. And this, to me, is the most enticing element of FIRE, is that element of control that you have over your own life. In order to reach FIRE, you have to take a hard look at what you want your life to look like. What are those things in life that are bringing you joy? With FIRE, you can have the freedom to travel, the freedom to pursue different hobbies, and the freedom to spend more time with your family. If you are interested in learning more about FIRE, there are plenty of resources to get you started online. Some of the podcasts that I absolutely love are Choose FI and Afford Anything. Some FIRE books that I have read and loved are Financial Freedom by Grant Sabatier, Quit Like a Millionaire by Christy Shen and Bryce Leung, and The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. And I don't read too many blogs, but if you are interested in reading blogs about FIRE, there are plenty out there, and I'll link some of those down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content of today's video. And until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.